Hello guys, thank you for tuning into my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about Mercury in retrograde and how can you tell where it affects you personally. Okay, first of all, got to give a little disclaimer about astrology. Most people use its symbolism, have a maybe a basic knowledge of what the zodiac signs are and how the personality traits, right? But but however, many people grossly do not understand astrology, and they give blanket statements or understanding, which isn't necessarily wrong, but it's grossly incomplete. It's oversimplified, and people do that because astrology can be aggravating as fuck. It is easy to understand once you get the hang of it, um, but a lot of people are lost because in the old days, man, you had to watch the sky and you had to go to old manuscripts to basically say where something was, you know, 100 years ago or something. Nowadays, we have software to where it's very easy to know where the stars were at your birth or the planets at your birth. Okay. So you don't have to buy some expensive software to do this. There is a lot of websites that give you free natal charts. A natal chart in astrology is basically a map of the stars of where things were basically when you were alive. Now, I have drawn a rough sketch natal chart. Bad handwriting, not bad circle for freehand, but anyway, a natal chart uh, basically is where you need to focus on. So you need to go ahead and go to one of these websites out there that give off a free natal chart. Put in your stuff. All right. Uh, so let's quickly get started on how this works. Okay. The natal chart, like I said earlier, is a blueprint of the skies when you were born. All right. Now, there are 12 zodiac, there's 12 houses. Each house represents about like 30 degrees. Okay. You add all 12 up, you get like 360 degrees, basically a big gigantic circle of the sky. Now, the center line right here that separates this, as you see, I've over exaggerated the line so you see what I'm talking about. Think of this as a horizon. Okay. Because this represents the circle of your life. Each house rules over something specific. This is one reason why when Mercury or another planet goes in retrograde, it affects others more than it affects you, or it affects you more than it affects others. Okay. And I want to show you basically how to find out when a planet goes in retrograde, how it affects you. So, for example, on some people, Mercury don't seem to affect them at all. And other people, it's like, oh, it's fucking up my travels, blah, 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 blah. All right. It's usually travel and communication that's associated with it, but people forget that Mercury represents the god Mercury, who is also the god of commerce. So, and basically, if you own a business, Mercury in retrograde can really fuck you up because, again, Mercury or uh, Hermes was also the god of shop owners and shopkeepers and so forth. A lot of people kind of forget that. But, anyways, now, usually in metaphysics, things go clockwise. They go counterclockwise for other reasons. I believe the natal chart goes counterclockwise, not clockwise. Maybe because this is supposed to be a mirror image. And even though it's a mirror image, if you're looking in the mirror, you raise your right hand. That's actually your reflection's left hand that shows up. It's a mirror image. Things are reversed. So I think that's why. I don't know. Don't quote me. Anyway, the 12 houses. So it starts here and goes counterclockwise. You can think of this as birth to death. Now, 12 does not mean death. Actually, that's in the house 8. Basically, I'll explain in a second. I'm not going to go into detail and explain every little house. I This is just a quick reference. You can, you know, Google what each house means in a natal chart, so you can get your own little I'm not ready or wanting to really do an in-depth lesson because I've did several of those already. I have many playlists, and it doesn't seem like they might watch certain videos get more watched than others. But I'm going to put into YouTube what I get out. I do this for enjoyment. So if you guys really, really, really want me to, you'll let me know, and then I might do an astrology course. But anyways, other than that, I'm just going to give you some basic information for you to go find out yourself. All right, so the one this represents you, represents the self, the personality. Okay, and like say two represents your belongings, what your money, right? Moving ahead too quick. Okay, for example, like I said, it goes counterclockwise. This is basically technically a circle of life. Each house represents a part of your life. Now, the lower houses, which is below this line, can be seen as things that are personal to you. Anything above that line is your life that's not personal. So you have the top and the bottom. You have the lower house, which is your your privacy, your personality, your personal views and personal life. This is your public life. So some of this reflects from the bottom to the top. Okay, and the reason why that would be is probably because I mean, like I said, there's two parts of you. There's the part that you keep private, and the part that you keep that you let is public, and then you have that part that certain select people who are in your public become private. So, but in any case, there's some wiggle room basically. But okay, so this represents your personality. This represents you as self, how you might view yourself. So if you have, say, Venus that rules over, say, love and stuff like that, and here you might be one of these people that overtly love yourself, maybe conceited, right? Not saying that people who have Venus in that first house is conceited. I'm just saying there's other like they will take that Venus and they will contrast it with other stars to develop a personality, which means that you may be more prone to being conceited, right? Or maybe it's in retrograde and that's why you have a reversed meaning of what it means to have self-respect or something, right? There's a lot of other stuff that goes into this. Okay, I'm just giving you a quick rundown that the planets that are in here help rule over that specific house. So let's say Mercury, since Mercury is in retrograde, if you have one, if Mercury is in the house and it's in retrograde, so let's say Mercury's here and it's in retrograde, that's going to affect how you may view yourself. You might have depression. You might have problems making decisions, communicating with your higher self, for example. However, let's say here, two, the house which rules over belongings, like money, your business, your property. Well, if Mercury's here, you might be pretty good at be influenced over gaining material wealth. Okay, if it's Mercury's in retrograde, you might have a harder time uh, getting your business started. If you start a business, like say with this house, if Mercury's in retrograde, and otherwise you're going to be real good at it. So again, the stars do not tell for us to do anything. They're subtle influences. And the problem is that people want to pass the blame. If they fail on something, they rather blame it on something else than take on responsibility. The stars do not dictate your life. It just shows you the weather. Okay, think of this as a weather phenomenon. Okay, if you know 2 years from now that it's going to be raining on a Sunday, but you're planning a an event, well, you might want to move it to Saturday, or even keep it on Sunday, just instead of a picnic where it's out in the rain, you bring it indoors. There's ways to work around things. The stars, as the little poem, the play with Shakespeare, our fate does not lie in the stars, but within ourselves. So regardless, if say if you have a natal chart that says that you're going to be unlucky in love, that does not mean that you won't be a Casanova. Okay, you might have to work harder at it or do other things. So again, this is just a subtle forecast that we can that will tell us where we need to work in our life to where this don't affect us in our life. You follow me? This is not these are not absolutes. These are a general rule that you need to adopt, and so you can change things in your life. Not It's what happens ultimately. What ends up happening is that most people give up. If they get a little struggle, they just go with the flow, and they blame it on Mercury, and then self fulfilling prophecy. Mercury says you're going to have a bad communication. Every time you get in an argument, you back off. All right, which makes things happen. So the astrology is basically a forecast to help us improve our life and take control of our life. This does not control our life. This helps us gain control. Follow? Okay. So now, as above, as below, various things. So this is about possession, right? Two, the house of two. Let's say a public version of this would be number 8. Okay. So two rules over money and possessions and stuff like that. Number 2 rules over other people's money and possession and how it affects you. Example, 8 would be a good example would be taxes, inheritance. Um, so basically, if you follow, uh, let's say your great grandmother dies, which this can also rule over physical death or endings of other things. I'm sorry, 8. Okay. Uh, before you and she leaves you an inheritance. Before you get the inheritance, that's still her money. That's her money until it becomes your money. So this rules over other people's money and how it affects you. The government taxes you. That would be this part. That's public taxing you. Uh, your great great grandmother who dies, she has money. How are these events going to affect how she leaves it to you? Are you going to have a problem gaining inheritance? Is there other people going to say, no, I contest that will? Other people's money before it becomes your money. Okay, you see how that works? So this belongs with other people's profits, money, and how it affects you. You can't you can't afford something because somebody else wants more money for it. Yeah, you follow the line of thought. Okay, so I'm not going to over explain this. So there we go. Let's say if this is in retrograde, you might have the upper hand because other people might have a problem holding on to their money while you're making it your money. If you have retrograde here, you might not want to open a business during the retrograde period. If it's already retrograde, say the Mercury is in retrograde here, then that just means from the get go when you try to open a business, you're going to have to work extra harder. Uh, Number 3 rules over, for example, communication. Okay, and personal communication. And in contrast, 9 rules over what could be considered religious constructs. I don't have to be religious to get a spiritual meaning from something, but communication is a key to anything. You could be private, right, and not be openly pagan, for example, but watching these videos, which I make public. All right, so YouTube changes the algorithm to where they don't want religious or witchcraft things to appear in the search engine as easy as it used to. That would affect you, even though you're private. Private life, public life, how the public life affects your private life, how your private life affects the public life, vice versa. Okay. Again, I'm not going to. So basically, in the end, get yourself a natal chart. Find where Mercury is, where you're born in your chart. Find out the meaning of that house, and you will automatically know what part of your life Mercury affects. And let's say somebody else was born in uh, Mercury is a number 5, but yours is a number 2. See that? Mercury will affect them more and say, let's say 3. 3 is communication. It'll affect them in communication more than it'll affect you in communication if Mercury is in 3 in retrograde. But uh, if so, I guess that's the best way I could say it is that you might be born with like uh, 2, Mercury in 2, which rules over communication, travel, and finances. This is the house of finances and possession. So this is where Mercury will affect you the most. Somebody else, it might be communication. Somebody else, it might be travel. So find your natal chart where Mercury is, and you'll be able to pinpoint when or any planet. You'll be able to pinpoint Saturn, Venus. You'll be able to pinpoint how that will affect you as opposed to how it affects somebody else. And that's how you can basically use astrology and find out how, just because Mercury is a retrograde, where is it the strongest, where is it the weakest, and then do your game plan from there. All right. Thank you for watching. Again, if you guys, I might do a more in-depth version of astrology, but Mercury is in retrograde right now. I'm not going to tell you my birth chart because people can use that against you in magic. Believe it or not, that's why they put your name and the birth date, because they're using your weaknesses against you. Which ultimately, a lot of people don't know that. They just think it's just to single you out. But anyways, I'm going to be doing other videos on hexes and curses for self-defense and vice versa. So I am going to do the darker arts too. But anyways, let me know what you want. Comment down below. Thank you.